I think today Paul gave us a textbook definition of what an excellent speech looks like. What I noticed today about Paul's speech is that everything about it, from the writing to everything he did on stage to the way he controlled his tone, had a very clear purpose. The first thing that Paul did when he got onto stage was he asked a bunch of questions to draw the audience's attention. Then he brought up a lot of imagery. So he started talking about Google Maps, how you look at your phone. In his speech, he described several countries that he's been to and how he walked really long distances to honor Queenie. Everything was very vivid. At some point in the beginning, after Paul's introduction, he had a punchline that immediately grabbed my attention. He said, you have Google Maps for finding your place in life, but what about the road of life? Right? There was a punchline that immediately grabbed my attention, and that was a signal that shifted from introduction to the main body of his speech. At some point, Paul described the deterioration of Queenie's health. He talked about how at first it was only one cane, then it was 2 canes, then she had to use a frame, then wheelchair, and then finally she couldn't even stand on her own. That progression, or rather deterioration of her health, painted a vivid picture in all of us that gave us a picture of how bad Queenie's situation was. Before I move on to the favorite part that I have about Paul's speech, I want to give Paul a couple of suggestions. In the beginning, I felt that the introduction was a little rushed. When you asked your questions, when you asked the audience the questions in the beginning, when you said, for example, have you ever been lost? You immediately went into the next sentence, not really giving us much time to think. It sucks, right? And then you immediately moved on. I would suggest adding a little pause in between so people can gather their thoughts. The second thing is, I really liked how when you were trying to imitate Google Maps, you used a different tone. I thought that was really clever, but I also thought if you're going to imitate Google Maps, you might as well take it a step further. So if I were in your shoes, instead of doing what you did, I would say, in a quarter mile, take the next exit on Route I-25. That's how I would imitate Google Maps. And the last suggestion that I have for you is, I really believe you when you said you hated yourself, you blamed yourself, that you had a lot of grief. But I couldn't really feel it when you were on stage. I believe you, but I didn't feel it. So instead of just describing how much you hated yourself, I think if I were you on stage, I would ask myself a bunch of questions. For example, you could say, how could I not do this or do that? Or, I wish I had done this or that. If only I could have done this or that. That would show us how much regret you have. Lastly, I think what made your speech truly special was how you used contrast really well. The tone of the entire speech was really somber, but towards the end, because of how somber the speech was, we could really feel that you found hope in the end. You talked about how you hit rock bottom, and when you hit rock bottom, people might have thought you were crazy walking down the street. But then you said that you found a new future, and because of that,